Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. On this channel we post writing tips, unboxings, book hauls, book reviews and the occasional vlog. And today I have another book review for you. However, rather than it being a book, we're reading a comic. I have never read a comic before. This is my first time venturing into the comic book world and I chose to read SANDMAN by Neil Gaiman. Obviously part of the reason for this is the new TV series is out of Sandman. Me and Matt are both Neil Gaiman fans, Matt more so than me, but he obviously has read this and we kind of have a rule of if a TV show comes out that we want to watch but it was a book first, we should probably read the book first. Luckily before this has come out, I have read SANDMAN, the first comic. And this one is volume 1, Preludes and Nocturnes. It was interesting. I will say when I first began to read this, I did struggle with the comic book format. I haven't been as sucked into the story as I probably would have been if it was the exact same story but written in book form, because obviously a lot of the world building and things like that are done through the imagery, which is a different way to read. It's also different because it's not always linear. Sometimes you have to look at a page, sometimes you have to turn the page to read what's going on, and it is rather dark material inside this book. But I did quite enjoy it for my first round. So as this is the first time I've read a comic, I'm going to go through it basically chapter by chapter. I know they're not chapters, it was when it was released in the magazine, but we're going to call it a chapter anyway. And then we'll talk about my overall review of this book. I will say if you haven't read SANDMAN, there are going to be spoilers in this. I'm not going to split it up. I don't think I can really talk about it without the spoilers because it's not as nitty gritty as a book. Everything is there on the page. You can't really necessarily discuss it all without saying what's going on. So if you don't want any spoilers, leave now. If you're happy to actually hear about this comic, then stay tuned. We're going to discuss SANDMAN by Neil Gaiman. Before we get into that, don't forget if you like what you see to subscribe to this channel. Your continuous support means a lot, so thank you guys so much. As always, I'll read you guys the blurb first. Preludes and Nocturnes, the first of 12 volumes collecting the complete run of the SANDMAN, begins a storytelling saga unique in graphic literature, introducing readers to a dark and enchanting world of dreams and nightmares. The home of Morpheus, the king of dreams, and his kin, the Endless. It also has loads of reviews on the back here. It says the greatest epic in the history of comic books. That's by the Los Angeles Times magazine. I don't know how you pronounce this word. Dark, iconoclastic, and wildly successful, San Francisco Examiner. A clever, literate comic book series that rewrote the conventions of horror and superhero comics for a new generation of adult readers, the Boston Phoenix. Neil Gaiman is simply put a treasure house of story, and we are lucky to have him in any medium. That's Stephen King. So it is a comic book, but it's a literature version of comic book. First story, which is Sleep of the Just. First of all, if you look at the imagery here, this is a very beautiful and, as you can tell, dark comic. There's not that many pages that aren't black. If we're honest, black is the foremost colour in this book. You're not going to read this for many colours, apart from maybe red. There's a lot of red. And the artists of this comic are Sam Keith, Mike Dringenberg, Malcolm Jones III. You've got 3 different artists working on this comic. The writer is Neil Gaiman. The colorist was Daniel Vozzo, letterer was Todd Clean, and Dave McKean did the covers. Now, unlike with a novel, there's a lot of people involved in just doing the one thing, whereas a novel, yes, you have the cover designers, you have the editors and all of that, but the main bulk is done by the writer, but that's not the case in comic books. If the imagery isn't good, the comic isn't great. But anyway, back to the first chapter. As I said at the beginning of this, I've never read comic books before, and one of the reasons I think I stayed clear of comic books, apart from the fact that they don't suck me in enough, is generally the women in them are useless. There's basically no point. They're there as a sex object or a victim and nothing more. In the first comic of this collection, that's still how I felt. The main characters were all male. The women in it were just used as victims, and one of them was raped whilst in a deep sleep and gave birth in a deep sleep, which is a massive horror story, especially for a woman, because this kind of stuff actually happens to women in hospitals in comas. That's insane. You shouldn't be in a coma and worrying that you're going to be raped. Just make the wound even worse, give birth. That's not fair. horrible, but it is a kind of horror comic. So well done, Neil Gaiman. It horrified me. It's probably one of the worst things I can think of to happen to someone in that situation. But it's a very interesting world that is created. Dream is captured instead of death, which causes a lot of the planet to go into a deep sleep and they're just not waking up. These people are asleep for years. He also uses in this first comic a writing trope which obviously makes you evil very quickly, where the main protagonist kills a cat. Now, if you want a character to be evil in one shot, have him kick or kill a cat or a dog. It is so easy to make someone evil in one sentence. And Neil Gaiman has definitely done that in this comic. Something with comics which a lot of overwriters could learn from is that you don't have many words. So you have to get everything across very quickly and concisely. So if you're an overwriter, try to read a couple of comics and just see how little information you can get away with. We'll then go on to comic number 2, which is Imperfect Hosts. I loved this chapter. So this made the first chapter, I was like, do I want to be reading this? The second chapter, I wanted to be reading this because they have a gargoyle. This chapter is about these two brothers and I absolutely adore them. You get their personalities very quickly. One is scared of the brother constantly kills them, they apparently come back to life all the time, but the other brother just gets very angry, very quick mood swings and constantly kills them. The gargoyle answers the door and the gargoyle is just so cute. Look at the cute face. And what makes it even cuter is there is a surprise present that the nasty brother is given the other brother. Now the other brother doesn't want to open this present because he's aware his brother just keeps killing him. So he thinks this box is going to explode. It's going to do something nasty. But what it actually does is gives him a baby gargoyle. And it's just so cute. Now his brother does kill him because he wants to name the gargoyle something that doesn't begin with G. However, he ends up naming it Goldie, but secretly calls him Irvin when the brother isn't there. But look how cute Irvin is. So I enjoyed that. It was a nice little, even though it's blood and everything and people are killed, there's a baby gargoyle and that lets it off with me. We then go on to number 3, which is Dream a Little Dream of Me. This collection, Preludes and Nocturnes, is all about Dream getting back his treasures. So as I said, Dream is captured instead of death. Whilst captured, he loses his amulet, his mask, and his sand. This whole collection is about Dream getting these 3 items back. They kind of evolve and get harder as they go on. This third comic, which is the first finding of one of these items, which is the sand, I didn't enjoy, partly because again the woman is only there as a victim. 2, it was too easy. There wasn't much to him getting this sand back. Another thing that frustrated me is when you first meet the female character in this book. Now, she is influenced by the sand. She's basically asleep or dreaming permanently. She has not moved from this bed for years. Obviously her body is deteriorating, but the first description you get, the first basic line in this book is, her nipples are hard and dark and shrunken on breasts like empty pouches. We don't need to know about the breasts. The next bit is about her hair coming out in clumps, her skin is flaking, she has bed sores, her fingernails have grown too long, her stomach is shrunk, she has the sand to make the pain go away. That is all good description, that's all we need. I mean, it was a thing of writers at this time, and again, it's a reason I didn't generally read comic books. I know all the fantasy books I've read are also guilty of this, but it comes across even more in a comic book because there's less words to hide it in. I have never described myself through my breasts. If you're going to write an erotica, you can describe the breasts. It's fine, good sex scene. Describe them away. She is melting onto her bed. I don't care what her breasts are like. Why, Neil? Why? But anyway, a simple chapter apart from the breasts at the beginning, which obviously, as you can see, caught a nerve. The rest of it is fine. He finds the bloke who takes him to his ex. They find the sand. The dad has kind of sunken into the walls. And Dream frees her from the sand. She dies, but he helps her die peacefully. It's very sweet. And the most gruesome thing, I guess, is the fact that the dad is now all over the walls. I was too preoccupied with the breasts, to be honest. Number 4 is A Hope in Hell. This is where Death is looking for the second item. Now, the second item is his mask. His mask has actually been taken by a demon from hell. A little bit of a harder task, but again, overall, I found this task too easy. He basically goes to hell, wins. It's not a rap battle, but basically wins a battle of saying something harder to escape than what the other person does, and then he gets the bag. For someone as old as Dream, I can't imagine this being a hard challenge. Yes, the stakes are high, but it's not necessarily difficult. But you do get to see a lot of demons from hell, which is quite fun. You get to hear about how hell has changed whilst Dream was trapped by the first protagonist, the humans who were very stupid in what they did. But again, all male characters, it's not that bad. The interesting part is the epilogue. I don't normally like epilogues, but this one introduces the next story, which is the 5th comic in this collection, and that is Passengers. Passengers is interesting. This one is about a doctor who is in an asylum. He is in the asylum because he has taken the amulet. Now, the amulet has a lot of Dream's powers in it, and it has driven him insane. He hasn't slept in years. I mean, you can kind of tell. Look at him. So he has not slept, and in this chapter he escapes from the prison. He ends up getting a lift from a woman who's really nice and understanding. You kind of think there could be some redemption there, that he could change, you know, and he doesn't change. I'm not going to tell you how, but very good introduction of character again. You know him inside out, you know just how damaged he is, and basically that is an introduction to this character, which leads on to comic 6, 24 hours with this insane character who has stolen the amulet and is using the amulet's powers. He spends 24 hours in a cafe, not allowing people to sleep, and abusing the amulet's power. This comic is horrifying, and the imagery sticks in your head. You don't want it to. It's horrible, but it is in there, and I can't forget this chapter, and it turns out neither can Matt. It is definitely the thing of nightmares, and it is rough, very, very rough, and it explores a lot of the animal instincts of humanity, the parts of people that we stop, rightly so, for society, and oh dear, 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 it will haunt you, which leads us into number 7, which is Sound and Fury. Sound and Fury is the first item that I can actually see being hard to get. Dream needs to get the amulet from this insane dude who has just been torturing the entire planet for 24 hours. The planet is insane. People are killing people, raping people, blowing shit up. It's not a good place to be right now. And Dream has to get this amulet from this guy, whilst the amulet has sucked basically all of his power. He does not have much power left by this point. So the other guy is stronger than him. He has the amulet. He is controlling everything, and Dream has to get it back. It is the first fight scene that is actually interesting in this comic for me. I enjoyed it immensely, and it made the rest of it worth reading for me. Before this point, I wasn't, apart from the gargoyles, I wasn't really into these comics. And lastly, we have comic number 8, which is The Sound of Her Wings. This is the first comic in the series. You actually see color in some of the designs. A lot of it is black and white still, but there is actually some colors in there. And you meet Dream's sister. Dream's sister is Death. Now, as you guys know, I'm a very big Terry Pratchett fan. This Death will never replace Terry Pratchett's Death. They were both made basically at the same time. However, I do still love this Death as well, but different reasons. Pratchett's Death will always be my number 1. But It is a really refreshing chapter, and what is I find very interesting is it's kind of dealing with mental health. Before that was a thing to discuss and something people were openly talking about. Dreams is very down. He's achieved what he had to achieve. He doesn't really know what to do with his time now. He doesn't, he's kind of in limbo. And Death comes to him and takes him out on her rounds, and seeing all these humans passing to the next life and how they react to her changes his feelings towards his own life. Everyone is frightened of death, but death is actually really kind and also inevitable. So he finds it very interesting that people will willingly go into dreams that he controls, that can be nightmares, that are unpredictable, but they don't willingly go to her, even though she is far more welcoming than he is. And I think this is what made it my favourite chapter. A, because death is not an object of lust or affection. So we don't have any descriptions of boobs. There's nothing like that going on. There's no risk of rape. Nothing. They're not, he's not raping anyone. It's just a nice chapter. And I really appreciate that this was the last one in this collection of the Sandman comics. Another thing I want to say in this is it has one of my favourite words. I'm just going to find it for you. I pre-apologise, I cannot pronounce my favourite word, but this is Death speaking to Dream. You are literally the stupidest, most self-centred, appallingest excuse for an anthropomorphic personification on this or any other plane. An infantile, adolescent, pathetic specimen. Anthropomorphic personification. I adore that word, and it is the same word that Death uses in Terry Pratchett to describe what they are. Until Terry Pratchett, I'd never heard that word before, and I love that Neil Gaiman also used it because I know those two were really great friends, and I kind of hope they sort of decided to use that together. And it just fills me with the fuzzies. I love that word. I love how she calls him that. It is such a nice, that's just my favourite speech quotation in this entire book. It's in there. So if you see this page, when you read it, here it is. I loved it. And that is all the comics that are in this collection. So this is number 1 in this, and this is the one that the first TV series season is based on, is this one here. I do recommend reading it. The design is beautiful. It is dated, as I said, the description of the breasts, all the characters are pretty much white, and most of them are male. But Neil Gaiman has, as far as I'm aware, I'm videoing this before I've seen the TV series. We will be doing a video discussing how it compares. I think that could be quite fun. But it definitely helps to fix some of the problems that are in this, and the things that put me off reading Sandman are kind of dealt with a bit in the TV series as far as I'm aware. We'll see when I watch it. But as for my first comic book read, I'm reading the second one right now. That is my current read. So it didn't put me off reading comics. I don't think it's got me into comics. I don't think you'll see me in the comic book section all the time, but I'm not against reading them. I would, if someone recommended one to me and it was something that dealt with a subject I'm interested in, or just, something that everyone's like, you've got to read this, then I now possibly would give it a go. So I'm really glad I read Sandman. As I said at the beginning, if you're an overwriter, read some comics, see how little information you can actually get away with. You need to, every word counts in these, which I think is why Neil Gaiman's writing is very concise. He's a great writer. I find the same problem in the first 2 items that Dream finds in this is the same problem I have with a lot of Neil Gaiman's writing, which is that the end is meh. But the last fight I actually really enjoyed, so he can do it. And it was good to see that he is doing this. This is one of the first things that he was writing which was being published. So he's a very, very good writer, and I did enjoy reading this. The artwork is beautiful, just problems of the time. And that is it for this comic book review, the first of my comic book adventures. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you are looking forward to the TV series as much as me and Matt are. If you do want to read it, I do recommend reading this and then watching the series, as always, because something's going to be changed, and it's kind of good to have a basis of what it is doing it the other way around doesn't always work because you lose all of the suspense, which, to be honest, it doesn't have that much suspense for me personally. So read it, then watch it. But if you haven't already watched it, I do recommend trying out the comics as well. I've never read a comic book before, so I can't really give this a rating against another comic book, and I can't rate it against books because a comic book is very different to books. However, in terms of its story, its plot, on the dialogue in it, I can kind of comment on that, and that is very Neil Gaiman style. It's very dark, it's very gothic. It is an alternate version of a hero, which is very fun, and especially at the time it was written, not really done. So very cool, very concise, well-written dialogue, gorgeous imagery. For me, it is still very backwards in how it treats the women, apart from death. I love death. The others, questionable. So for that reason, I would give this a 7 out of 10 stars. It would be higher, but I've got to take at least, I think I have to remove at least 1 point for the first introduction of a boob to describe a woman. I can't let that go. So I would say overall, technically it's 8 stars, but we're docking a point for that. We didn't need to know about her nipples and breasts as the first introduction to her. So story, it's how it is. We're going 7 out of 10. And thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. If you want to see as soon as I upload, click that little bell down below. You can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. I post general bookish pictures, as well as my writing tips and unboxings on there. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye!